Okay, guys, so we are back with our video series on NAT, network address translation. There's three types. We talked about static, we talked about dynamic. Today we're going to talk about PAT. So let's go to PAT here. Port address translation. This is a one-to-many mapping. It is the most common out of all three network address translation protocols. One-to-many mapping basically means you take one public IP address, okay, and you're going to essentially use that one public IP address to go ahead and represent your what would be your private IP addresses. Okay, this is the configuration for PAT. Obviously, we're still doing the IPNet outside, IPNet inside, whichever way the router is pointing towards the networks. The big key, honestly, when you look at this configuration, it's almost identical to what would be dynamic NAT. The only difference is, and the big difference is, overload. So you need to make sure that you use the word overload when it comes to PAT. Once again, overload is used when you're doing your port address translation. Okay, let's go ahead and actually get into our Cisco packet tracer. Okay, guys, so we are here on our Cisco packet tracer and we're talking about PAT. Look on my local area network how I have 6 computers and I'm utilizing what would be the private IP address. Remember, there's technically 3 ranges, 3 types of private IP address. There's 3 types of private IP address. You have your class A, class B, class C. In this situation, we're using our class A. Okay, I'm using a total on this topology. I have a total of 6 computers. Here's the beautiful thing about PAT. These 6 computers are basically represented by one public IP address. Okay. One public IP address is representing all of these 6 computers. And in the world where we're running out of public IP addresses, version 4, and where public IP addresses cost money, you guys can see how this is a vital tool for an organization in order for them to go ahead and maximize their profitability, also their productivity. So nonetheless, just looking at this, you guys can see that we have our private IP, we have our public IP. This is our inside global, and then we have our, we can call this Google. We can call it, hey, this is where we need to download the PDF. You have a server, and funny enough, a server provides services. So let's go ahead and take a look here. What I'm gonna do is as you guys can see, I was playing around with this before. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to look into our command here and I want to show you guys something. Show IPNet translations. Okay, so as you guys can see, I did one ping and that one ping showed us this information here. Inside local 10.10.10.16. Inside local is your private IP address, as you can see. I pinged from PC0. If I were to go ahead and check the IP configurations on PC0, we should see 10.10.10.16. Inside global is our public IP address, which was derived from this network here, the 1.1.1.0/30. This would be something where you would get from your internet service provider, and they're like, hey, these are the IP addresses that you can use to go into the web. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and let's see if this is true. I'm going to go to IP config. And as I go to IP config, you can see IP address, IP address version 4. Our address here is 10.10.10.16, just like we would expect from our inside local on our IP NAT translation as we did the ping from PC0. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do pings from all the computers. So we're going to go ahead and ping that here. So we're going to ping, and I believe I pinged before. Yes, I did. Perfect. Yep. And we're pinging from all our 6 computers here. So we can just go ahead and show our IP NAT translation. So before we used one computer to ping, and you guys can see what was essentially spewed out. Now we're going to do that same command again, show IP NAT translations. So we're going to show IP NAT translations, and as you guys can see, the table is definitely a lot bigger. Notice here, this is what I want you to take away from this video. Our inside global is our public IP address, is the address that we're advertising out into the internet, is the address that we get from our internet service provider. In this situation, it was configured as 1.1.3. Our inside local is the IP address that we configure on our end host. It is the private IP address. There's three types of IP addresses. In this situation, we just used class A. You can see here 10.10.12, you have 10.14, you have 13, you have 15, we talked about 16 already, you have .11. So and look at this. You're taking all those just looking at all this. I wanted to highlight just this section here. Notice that the public IP address that's being advertised is 1.1.3. The magic with PAT is on the other side of the colon. As you guys can see here, what we have is port numbers. These are the port numbers, hence port address translation. So the way these computers are communicating is on a higher layer. They're communicating on the transport layer. So the messages and how they're receiving their information and how they're being classified and divided is based on the port. Okay, so we already know that transport is what would be a higher layer than IP address. IP address is a higher level than our MAC address. But that's basically what I wanted to go ahead and show with the overview for Pat. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to ask. Thank you and have a wonderful day.